Directed by Jeff Orlowski, The Social Dilemma is a documentary about how the social media platforms and the huge companies behind them have completely changed the way we live our lives. Well, duh. For the better, of course, but also potentially doing more harm and damage to us than we might realize. And there is definitely an irony about Netflix releasing and streaming a documentary that, in essence, condemns data mining and manipulative technology. But hey, the doco doesn't really mention Netflix or target them, so I guess they're in the clear. So this movie essentially is a blend of two parts. It's got a blend of these talking heads, of these notable people that are very knowledgeable in the Silicon Valley industry. They've either been a part of these big companies or, they're university professors that have been studying the behaviors of people that interact with these social media platforms. And on the other side of it, there's this Black Mirror-esque fictional storyline that attempts, and the keyword is attempts, to better illustrate how social media is truly impacting and influencing each of us as users. So the through line of this documentary essentially is that these massive companies, in the pursuit of profits and increasing their market capital and keeping their shareholders happy, these social media platforms have developed algorithms and technology to keep the users on their platforms. And by keeping the users on the application, they can push ads to them, thereby making money. So the customer for these companies isn't actually us as the user, as the viewer. It's actually these other companies that are buying up all these ads. So we, the users, the viewers, the audience, we are the product that these social media platforms, they go to these companies and say, look, we have this much attention. We have this many people within this demographic. We have this many people that like this niche, and we can push your product to them. That's what they're actually selling, and that's how they generate profit. So what the companies are truly specializing in is capturing attention. And essentially they do this by micro-programming and manipulating us to keep scrolling through their content, to keep clicking on the next recommended video, because more screen time equals more ad revenue. Straightforward enough. However, an unintended consequence of an algorithm like this that just keeps pushing things to you that you are likely to click, likely to watch, means that it's created a confirmation bias environment, where essentially all you see on your feed are things that are related to things that you like, are things that you're likely to read or watch, and essentially just things that you generally agree with. Because that's the stuff you'd want to read, and that's the stuff that you'd want to watch. You want to read about things that you like. You want to read about things you agree with. It confirms what you think and what you believe, and you feel validated. And because of this, if all the news you read comes from Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube videos, you are literally getting a very, very skewed view of the world. A view that is literally tailored just for you, so that you keep clicking and you keep watching. And it's a view that doesn't let you think critically and just affirms what you think are your opinions and values. And without getting a more holistic view of what's out there, of what a whole spectrum of people think and feel, you can't really form your own opinions on things, because your opinion is just what someone is telling you. Your opinion is just what YouTube thinks that you want to hear based on your other views. And it's essentially just saying that because you're similar to this guy, and this guy watched all these videos, you probably share the same political views, you probably share the same values. If you were able to educate yourself and actually go out there and think critically and absorb more information, you could actually come to conclusions that are different. But because we might not take that extra step, we sort of default into just what YouTube thinks we think, and we end up thinking what YouTube thinks we think, and it's just an echo chamber, and you just keep getting fed the same thing over and over, affirming what you think, and that just becomes what you think you think. Am I making sense? And this effect has resulted in our societies and our communities becoming extremely polarized. People aren't reading or watching things and thinking critically about whether or not they agree or disagree with the premise or the content, but rather we're just being fed what these algorithms think that we want to hear. However, I will say that this documentary does put a lot of the blame on these profit-hungry social media companies just wanting ad revenue and fighting for the user's attention, but it does fail to touch on other platforms like WhatsApp, 4chan, 8chan, Reddit to some extent, that may not be primarily driven by a specific algorithm that's focused on generating ad revenue or specific profit motives. I honestly think it all boils down to the abuse and exploitation of the ability to connect like-minded individuals over the internet. And this connectivity has resulted in some perspectives and malicious intentions being able to really flourish. Look, the Black Mirror-esque bits was completely cringy and way too over the top. They've got these three guys living inside the social media machine, working out what things to do to grab the user's attention and what ads to peddle to them. You've got a family struggling to get their 3 children to have dinner at the table all together without using their phones, and you've got a sister that's constantly nagging about how bad social media is and how her brother's an addict and he needs to detox from social media. Overall, the message of the documentary is quite impactful, but the fact that, those really informative talking head interviews is sort of paired with this cringe fest is just sort of insulting. I get that they're trying to skew it in a way that allows for the audience to better understand and better digest the way that these social media platforms are actually influencing us or manipulating us. But the execution was just so cringy. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, no one is watching this documentary and saying, oh yeah, I'm just like that main character. I'm addicted to my phone and I just can't put it away. Or the sister literally shattering and breaking a cookie jar to get to her phone because she's that desperate to get on social media. It was just too extreme, and because of that, it made it feel a little bit disconnected from reality. They did also touch on the mental health side of things, how depression and suicide rates have skyrocketed since instant access to the internet has been around, the amount of value that we place on getting likes and getting views, and how we use these numbers as a measuring stick to validate ourselves. And if we don't hit a certain amount of likes, we just feel inadequate. Honestly, I do feel like I'm fairly lucky in this regard. I think I sort of just missed this wave. When I was using Facebook back in school, it was mostly all on my computer. The iPhone was quite new back then, and iPhones weren't really a thing until much later in high school. And we definitely didn't have access to social media 24/7 like there is nowadays. And because of that, I feel like I was able to mature without having to grow up in that social media era, in a sense. And now when I use social media, I do feel like I have a bit more perspective and I have a bit more awareness when I use those platforms. And I can only imagine what it would have been like being a young, impressionable kid using these platforms, and the possibility of online bullying, and the fact that you'd take things to heart. You'd probably see one of your friends gets 100 likes and you only got 20, and you'd think that maybe people just hate you. At the end of this film, it definitely did have me reflecting on my own current use of social media and my daily habits. And I'd like to think that I'm not being manipulated that much anyway, but I don't know, maybe I'm just in denial. But I do think that's really the point of this film. It's definitely extremely popular on Netflix right now, and I would recommend you give it a watch. I think it will do a good job in not necessarily convincing people to delete their social media and get rid of it completely, but to warn people to be more conscious of what they see on their social media feeds, and understanding that the content that's on there is being pushed to you, and it's specific content that they've handpicked for you, and there's definitely an element of manipulation. And I'm sure if you're conscious of that, you would never rely on just Facebook or Instagram for news, or just rely on one YouTuber for political commentary. And it's always important to consume content that you may not agree with, and to honestly think critically and question why you may or may not agree with a specific perspective. I think that's really the essence of the film. People nowadays aren't thinking critically anymore. They're just sort of defaulting into these buckets that Facebook, Instagram, YouTube have just given them. You are a person that enjoys XYZ, therefore your political views are ABC. They're just sort of bucketing these people and saying that, oh yeah, because they like these things, their views and their values would be equivalent. And it's definitely on us to be more critical about what we read and what we watch, and to really think hard and dig deep, and to come to our own conclusions and to really form your own values. I mean, it's really clear in the documentary that the people that used to work for these social media companies, they wouldn't even let their kids use it. So although they might be saying publicly, like, look, social media networks are neutral, they don't do any harm, these social media platforms aren't responsible for the offline behavior of their users, the fact that they don't want their kids to use it means that they do understand that there actually is an impact, especially at a young age where you're extremely impressionable, where you take what you read as fact, where you take what you listen to as someone teaching you something. So while this documentary can be half the time extremely cringy, it does have an important message at its core, and it's definitely just a wake-up call for people to think more critically about what they're watching and what they're consuming. Social media is honestly just such a powerful tool, and it has honestly just opened up a world of possibilities. And I think in a good way. But it is just important to understand and be aware of how these social media platforms may be trying to manipulate you, and the purpose of them is not necessarily for the benefit of us as the users, but really just for other companies. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to Cloudy TV for more content from me. Let me know in the comment section down below, what social media platform do you use the most? And are you going to be trying to tone down your use of social media after watching this documentary? For me, I definitely am on YouTube way too much, and yep, I'll definitely be trying to scale that back, and I'll be trying to stop myself from going down a lot of those recommended rabbit holes. But at the end of the day, I don't think I'll be deleting any of my social media platforms. I feel like I've got a decently healthy relationship with my social media platforms, and I do think I get plenty of positive utility out of them. As always, thank you all again for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.